Hi everyone. All right, this is Geek Talk with Rachel, and I just watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, Episode 19. So, okay, we're still in the framework at this point, and a lot just happened. So, these have been some pretty crazy episodes. Definitely my favorite of the season, and definitely my favorite actually of the show in general. So, that being said, let's dive in here. Okay, first thing I want to note that it happened super fast. So, probably unless you were looking for it or paused, you wouldn't have noticed. But when they first show the Bakshi report, John Garrett's picture actually shows up. I didn't pause it, so I don't know why exactly. So I didn't catch that part. But just found it interesting that he showed up and it was kind of, you know, little honor to Bill Paxton. So then they kind of move along, and of course, we saw from the trailer last week that Daisy and May worked together, and I assumed anyway that Daisy and May were gonna injure Ada, and that's exactly what happened. Ada's there, and she starts listing the different, I guess, qualities of people that even though they're in the framework, they still retain these qualities. She happened to mention Fitz is still a romantic, and that got me thinking, all right, so maybe it's less that she wanted him like as, someone who was her, I don't know, boyfriend, love interest, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it was more because she knew she needed him for something, as we're going to find out as in the rest of this episode. Then, of course, Ada wakes up in the real world. And this part I found pretty fascinating, that she was saying she could recalibrate people because they mentioned May and how May was now siding with the resistance again. So, okay, she's saying she can recalibrate people. So as this episode went forward, I kept expecting just out of the blue that May was just going to snap and be bad again because she made that comment about recalibration. So I'm really curious how that's going to come into play and what's up next, because in this episode, May did not get recalibrated. She was still the same person throughout the whole thing. But as we saw earlier on, before we got into the framework, they have the ability to basically reset someone. If you remember with May, when she kept waking up in that cycle of fighting Ada, and we soon realized that, yeah, she just kept waking up in the same loop. So obviously they can do that, but they didn't do it in this episode. So we'll see what happens with that. I found it interesting. Ada, mentioned in the real world as she's with the Russian who showed up again, that her primary directive is to protect these people. So he can't kill them and she can't kill them. The exception to that rule is if and she specifically mentions that right now she's allowed to kill Daisy and Gemma. So it's interesting, her reasoning there. It's almost like she kind of just inventing her own reason and kind of. So yeah, then we go back to the framework, and Ada, or AKA Ophelia, is on the bed. She wakes up, or no, sorry, reverse that. She hasn't woken up yet. They are telling Fitz and his dad that her spine is damaged and they don't know if she's ever going to walk again. So then we go into Bakshi talking with Fitz, and of course, Bakshi says, "What kind of monster would do this?" Fitz's reply is inhuman. So far, everyone else in this, in the framework, all the other characters are slowly finding their way back. Not Fitz. He seems to be so deeply involved in all this that it's not looking good for him, especially when it gets later on in the episode and they're finishing Project Looking Glass, and Fitz actually says, "I have one request. Can you take me with you?" And Ada's like, "I was hoping you were going to say that." So, all right, we'll get into Project Looking Glass in a second. So, okay, we see more with Mac and his daughter. I'm finding this fascinating because poor Mac, all the characters, some more than others, are going to be deeply affected by what's going on in the framework. But Mac, it's going to be like he had a daughter, and then all of a sudden he doesn't have a daughter. So I've heard people say on some of these reviews that they almost don't think he's gonna. They almost think he's gonna want to stay because he's gonna want to be with his daughter, and Yeah, I mean, I could see that. He seems like he's incredibly attached to her. So then Trip and Gemma, so they're looking at the plans, and Gemma finally discovers kind of what's going on a little bit, and she thinks she knows where they're keeping Project Looking Glass. So then she and Trip they do their own little mission, and it's kind of interesting to see them back again too, since it's been a while. They go on their own mission, and they finally think that they found Project Looking Glass, and they get there, and what's the reveal? That nope, they did not find it, at least not in this world. They're at the right spot, but not in the right reality. So I thought one of my favorite parts, so then we see May and Daisy, and they're kind of exchanging a little bit back and forth. And even May, she was higher up in Hydra. But even May is not as high up as Fitz, and May is starting to say things like, well, I know it doesn't matter, I still did these terrible things to people whether or not I knew what I was doing. So if she's feeling guilty, I can only imagine what's going to happen to Fitz once this is all said and done. Fitz and his dad, the scene where he's finishing Project Looking Glass, or in the process of finishing it, and his dad comes in, and basically Fitz freaks out because he's like, why'd these people get away? Daisy and May. Why didn't you get them? So he freaks out, which everyone saw from the trailer last week about him wanting these people dead. And the dad's response is, if I wanted someone this emotional, I would have left you with your mother. So, okay, we're starting to see just how much of an effect his dad has had on him and what he's taught him. But as the dad's leaving, Fitz actually had a really good comeback. So the real Fitz probably wouldn't like this comeback, but I thought it was good considering Alistair Fitz is not a, good guy. Fitz's comment was, I don't tolerate failure, even from my father. So that made me feel a little hopeful. Even though the sentiment was bad, it still made me think, all right, well, maybe he's starting to separate from his dad. Even though Fitz has shown us nothing else about being removed from the situation, at least that looks like it's kind of promising, but we'll see what happens. Then we get some really good scenes. So first, May starts feeling a little bit of deja vu when she's tying Coulson's tie, and I was like, yeah, that was pretty awesome. Because right before they went to the framework, they were really pushing the fact that Coulson realized he loved May. And now, since we've been in the framework, of course, that has kind of gone away because they don't have their memories. So I'm hoping that once this is all said and done, or maybe the season finale, Coulson and May will finally get together, because I've been wanting that to happen since the very beginning. So we'll see. I didn't mention yet Fitz's dad beating the crap out of Radcliffe. Radcliffe has had his moments. So he's the kind of guy sometimes I've really not liked him because he's such a coward. But then there's today's episode where he actually defended Fitz and basically told this dude, who's his dad, that, you are a disappointment to your son in both worlds. Then, of course, the code that is Fitz's dad proceeded to beat the crap out of him, but it actually made me think really highly of Radcliffe in that moment, considering he's had some questionable moments since he arrived in the show. Then Ward and Daisy / Skye, that broke my heart, because this Ward is obviously a really good person, and he literally lost his girlfriend because it was Skye and now it's Daisy. And see, the thing is that when they are in the newsroom, I guess like behind the scenes or whatever, in the office, or not the office, the broadcasting room, whatever you want to call it, he obviously understands why she wouldn't feel comfortable around him. He gets that this other Ward is a terrible person. So he's like a very rational version of Ward who is understanding. And I almost expected her to give him a kiss just to, because it seemed like they were having a really special moment. And I think that deep down, Skye always cared about him. Obviously, not once he turned into bad Ward, but even then, like, first of all, I am one of those people who wanted Ward to end up being good again, or something to happen. So I'm really hoping that if nothing else good comes from Project Looking Glass, that they will bring Ward back as a person. This Ward, because this Ward is awesome. So let's cross our fingers for that. But plus everything that happened to Daisy with Lincoln, and it just, it would be nice for something good, like really good, to happen for her. And this Ward seems like he would be a good presence in her life. So let's keep our fingers crossed. All right. And then, when Ward volunteers to stay behind, knowing he's probably going to die. Awesome. I loved that part. Yeah, just again, good Ward. I mean, this character needs to be back. All right, so I guess the final thing for me to mention is the very ending when Coulson gets on the air and he starts talking. I almost knew what he was going to do, where he was going to say he was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., but hearing him say that was incredibly powerful and the best way to end the episode. Now, I have not seen the previews for next week yet, so I'm going to go check those out after I'm done this review. But yeah, this was amazing, and I'm super excited for the next episode because even though I haven't seen the trailer, there are basically the synopsis was released, and they're suggesting that something big is going to happen. So, like, bigger than, the last couple episodes. So we will see what happens. Anyway, this is Rachel with Geek Talk with Rachel. This was my first time reviewing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., my second review, so I'm going to start doing this on a regular basis. Go ahead, and if you liked this video, hit the subscribe button. I will be broadcasting a lot more in the future, and not just this show, but Flash, that was the other one I just did. I'll be doing Marvel movies, of course. And yeah, and if you have any comments or any thoughts on this episode, feel free to leave them below.